Okay, we have one more policy to consider this morning before lunch, and it's recommended draft policy ARIN-2019-3, update 4.10, the IPv6 deployment block. I'm going to do the introduction to this, and then I'm going to have Alicia come up and do the AC presentation. So, Alicia Trotman and Owen DeLong are the Advisory Council shepherds on working on this. The history, it was submitted as a policy proposal as 262 in February this year. It became a draft policy almost immediately and was recommended in August of this year. Recommended status I haven't talked about. So after you have a draft policy, if indeed we have a clear problem statement, we can have a draft policy. In order to be recommended, we not only need to have a clear problem statement, but we also need to have a policy text, and we have to know that the policy meets the criteria. The proposed policy text and problem statement meets the necessary criteria for advancement. And this means it has to be fair and equitable, it has to be something that's legal, it has to actually apply to the NERPM correctly, and all of that's in the PDP. So at that point, when the AC says, okay, we will actually believe this conforms to a good policy proposal, has all the necessary requirements, they'll make it recommended, at which point a couple of things happen. It's assured of coming to a members meeting for discussion on the floor now, and it also, as I've said before, you may not ever see it again. It may actually go from a members meeting to the Board of Trustees for adoption. This is a recommended draft policy. It was presented at ARIN-43. The latest version is the 20th November version, and the summary is that right now, the minimum and maximum from the reserve block is /24. They may only receive one 24 every 6 months, and it cannot have any other allocation or assignment that can otherwise meet their needs. The staff understanding is that no organization can receive more than /21 from this pool, and that the utilization requirements are such that the policy, you must continue to use the existing block under the terms you've got it, and must be 80% utilized if you're going to ask for an additional one. This policy proposal clarifies these requirements. It's clear and understood. There's no material issues. And it's minimal resource impact because it's literally changing the requirements that are there in a more clear form. We need to update staff training and internal procedures, documentation on the website. At this point, I'm going to ask Alicia to come up and give the AC presentation. Good morning. That's your next slide button.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Well, after that introduction, there's really not much else to say. That pretty much covers it. So the initial problem statement started with the fact that the ARIN staff had implementation issues with the current text. The minimum allocation for the ARIN staff was a /24, but the current text, the minimum allocation was a /28. Also, the RPKI landscape also had issues with the /28, and it was more practical. It's not very practical to have a /28 in the current text. Continue the problem statement. As you can see, minimum block size would now be a /24. The right one. Right, I want to get to the summary of it all. The summary, the three major changes. One, the minimum block size will be a /24, and the limit will be a /21. Secondly, it removes the requirements for return and renumbering. And thirdly, where there was a placement in there that referred to another section, it's now currently in there, the utilization requirements, which is 80%, that is now directly in the text. This was presented in ARIN-43 in Barbados. There was robust discussion, mainly around the minimum size, but we decided to keep the text as is, as a /24 minimum. However, in PPML, there was basically one comment that said they're in agreement with the current text. On the 15th of August 2019, it moved from a draft policy into recommended draft policy. And as John said, this may be the last time that you would see it. It would go to final call. The comments from the staff, it was clearly understood. There were no red flags, no major issues. The resource impact would be minimal. And pretty much that is it. The question to the community is, are we still in agreement with this policy, the change in text of this policy?
The Vice Chair will come up now and moderate discussion from the floor. Alicia, you should stay up to assist if any questions come up.
All right, thank you. Front center microphone.
Hello, good afternoon. Aaron Hughes, 6 Connect. Just as a friendly reminder of why the 28 came to exist, I think I was the one who suggested it many years ago, and that was around the idea that for new V6 only networks, they still need 32-bit unique identifiers for routers, router IDs, et cetera, and arbitrarily picked 16 hosts as a small network receiving the V6 only allocation. So it wasn't ever intended to be routed. It wasn't intended to have reverse DNS. It was simply for 32-bit unique identifiers. So there are cases where that would be just wasting space if you're putting in a V6 only network. Still in support of it, just wanted to remind people why I was there.
Thank you. Far microphone.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. I support it. Kind of funny, I was the author of the proposal that basically did the same thing a couple years ago where it was abandoned. But times change, and I think actually this policy 4.10 should be the new entrant policy at this point. It meets all those criteria, and this is sort of the final thing that does it. You get a small amount of space. The caveat is you need to do V6 with it. This sure looks like the new entrant policy moving forward, and I hope we can expand that /10 and take some of the waiting list space before it gets into there and put it into 4.10. But for this policy, I support it as written.
Thank you. Rear microphone.
Lee Howard, IPv4 Global. I have 2 questions before I can figure out whether I support or oppose. The first is, what does the examples given, what does NatPT have to do with IPv6 deployment?
So in the text, there's it says, if you need this in order to assist your IPv6 deployment, and is illustrative examples. We don't exactly pin people down. If they can show a technology and how having a v4 block assists them in that, we go along with it. I am not wedded to any particular examples in the text, and while I could envision a circumstance of using NatPT for that, that'd be a pretty bizarre scenario. So if the community wants to have better examples listed or no examples, that's fine. We actually treat each one on a case-by-case basis. We ask someone, show us your architecture, tell us where you're going to use the v4 addresses, and show us how it supports v6.
Yeah, thank you. My second question was going to be about whether key dual stack servers meant resolvers or auth servers, but I think you just answered the question to say these are examples. And so I think that I'm happy with the rest of the proposed policy as it stands. I'm unhappy with the examples. Thanks.
All right, noting the queues are empty, I would invite you to approach them now if you have anything further to add. We'll check in on remote participants. Chris? Nothing from any remote participants? Going once? Twice? All right. Well, thank you,
Alicia,
for your presentation. And we'll now move on to the show of support. So, are my counters ready? 1, 2, there. All right, all those in favor of the proposal, please raise your hand high. All right. And those opposed, please indicate so now. Okay, thank you. We'll give a moment to wait for any delayed remote participants.
Why did the ghost float into the bar?
Tell us, John, why?
For the booze.
Excuse me. Good night.
The rapidly approaching gentleman to the far microphone?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Could you put some control on your, well, on the esteemed gentleman to which
I will
given mic time.
I will do my best. All right, noting that we've gained 5 people, total in-person or remote participants 122. Those in favor 29, those against 1. Thank you for your feedback. It will be passed to the AC for their consideration.